Thank you, Vedant. Yesterday, the New York Times attributed to a U.S. official concurring with the figures that are stated by the health ministry in Gaza on the number of killed. This figure, as of today, is about 10,000 plus, including 4,000 children. Do you accept that figure? Do you concur with that figure?
Said, that is a figure. That is one of the figures that is currently being used to assess the number of casualties in Gaza right now. And candidly, Said, of course, any number above zero is heartbreaking.
I understand. I just want to ask you if you have other figures. I mean, you're saying there are other figures. What are the other figures?
I'm not saying there's other figures, and I think if you're referencing some of the comments made last week by the president and others about questioning those metrics, I think we were very clear that no one in this administration is questioning that fatalities have happened, that civilians have lost their lives in Gaza. What we are saying is that this is a ministry that is run by Hamas that just a number of weeks previously, please let me finish, Said, that just a number of weeks previously had unleashed a horrific terrorist attack on Israel that has a track record of inflating and being inaccurate about fatalities. And so the point we are just simply making is that there is that track record. That does not mean that these civilian casualties are not heartbreaking. That does not mean we're not doing everything we can to ensure that number stays as low as possible. There is not another entity counting casualties in the region right now. The security system parameters in the region right now make it difficult for other entities to be able to do so. So that is the number that currently exists. Of course, it is heartbreaking for any number.
I understand all this. I just want to let you know there is actually a system because COGAT controls all these things. Everyone born, everyone that dies in Gaza is listed by the Authority for the Territories and Gaza in Israel. But that's up to you. I'm not arguing this issue. I'm saying, do you accept what was said in the New York Times, attributed to a U.S. official, that they actually do concur with the figures that were stated or listed by the government, the Ministry of Health in Gaza?
Yeah, and again, Said, what I would just say is that no one in this administration, myself included, questions the humanitarian crisis that is happening in Gaza or that there has been a significant loss of civilian life. As it relates to that specific number, again, I'm aware of that specific reporting, and it continues to be a number that we are also including and looking at and assessing in our own internal assessment and parameters of the situation that's ongoing.
A couple of other issues, if I may, if my colleagues indulge me. On the issue of the West Bank and the guns that are going to Israel, the new M16s and so on. Are you confident that these will not be handed to the settlers as Ben-Gvir promised?
Said, we have been incredibly clear to our partners in Israel that steps need to be taken to address the extremist violence that we have seen in the West Bank. And we've heard the Israeli government, and the secretary has been deeply engaged in this directly as part of his travels. Making these we've heard the Israeli government making these commitments and understanding that there is a responsibility there, and we're watching very closely to make sure that it happens.
Okay, and let me ask you something. I mean, we have seen in Washington a demonstration that probably had close to 300,000. A lot of people out there. Do you take note of that? Do you take of these demonstrations in Los Angeles, in New York, across the globe, as a matter of fact, 2 million people in Indonesia and so on, that are calling for a ceasefire? Do you actually take this into account, or you completely dismiss this public sentiment?
Of course, Said, there are a number of factors that go into whatever this government's response or viewpoint is going to be on any particular issue area in the world. And that, of course, includes the situation right now in the Middle East. Of course, first and foremost is what we believe to be in the interest of the American people and in the national security interest of the United States. But yes, of course, we are watching closely around the world as many are making their voices heard and exercising their freedom of speech and the First Amendment to make their points of view clear as it relates to this.
And do you believe, finally, I promise, do you believe that, after the Secretary's trip, that he went through the region, that you guys would have a better idea what the end game should look like or what it should be and when? I mean, this thing can go on forever, the bombing of civilians and so on.
That continues to be one of the many things that is being discussed and is being looked at, not just by the Secretary while he's in the region traveling, but by others as well. Of course, it is incredibly important to think about the steps are being taken to ensure that Hamas cannot do this again and what other things might look like for the region. But one thing that has been evergreen and consistent, Saeed, is that we have been clear that we continue to believe that the only sole viable path for durable security and durable peace for Israelis and Palestinians is a two-state solution. Will, you've had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Just kind of following up a bit on Saeed's points and Olivia's, looking at the civilian deaths, mounting quickly to 10,000, and they keep mounting, looking at the humanitarian hang-ups in terms of fuel and other goods. Is the administration feel like it's under pressure, not just from protesters, from Democrats and Congress, from others, to change its message to Israel, to use its influence with Israel to bring about a course change? Is the administration under pressure, and is there a limit? Is there a point somewhere, if the civilian casualties keep adding up or humanitarian goods don't flow, where the administration might change its message to Israel?
Will, what I can just say is that right now we are squarely focused on a number of things. First, that continues to be ensuring that humanitarian aid can get into Gaza and help the civilians that need it. No one in this administration, myself, Matt, the Secretary, the President, is trying to undermine or downplay the severity of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza right now. Number two, we're continuing to take steps to work with the Israeli government and other partners in the region to ensure that hostages can be released, and that can be done so as swiftly as possible. And one of the messages that Secretary Blinken is carrying loud and clear in his travels to any country is that it cannot be as business as usual with Hamas, and any country who feels that they have a constructive role to play in the release of these hostages should do so. And thirdly, we're taking steps to continue to support our Israeli partners as they defend themselves and ensure that Hamas cannot do something like this again. And of course, throughout all of that, we are making it incredibly clear that there are international laws in which the ways these operations need to be conducted, and that steps need to be taken to ensure that the impact on civilians is minimized as much as possible. We've been clear with that with the Israelis. It's something that the Secretary has raised in his travels directly with his counterparts, and it's something that will continue to do so. And meanwhile, Congress, others, the American people, should continue to make their voices heard and to express their opinions about what's happening around the world. We believe that's incredibly important too.